एहसास न्याय का सबके लिए, आकाश न्याय का सबके लिए.
This is Advocate Shubham Sinai Priolkar, and today we will be learning about a very interesting topic. Everyone wants to own a piece of Goa. Everyone wants to feel a part of this heavenly abode. And when such a transaction takes place, there are always legal nitty-gritties involved. Today we have Advocate Mulgaonkar, an esteemed member of the bar, who will be telling us about the transactions and the transmissions of title documents. Advocate Mulgaonkar, having an experience of over 15 years in this very field, his depth and vastness of knowledge would certainly be helpful to us.
My topic today is Goa property documents, title search. Now, anytime we venture out to buy any property, which is very often to build a house for ourselves, there is a process which we undertake to scrutinize the documents of the seller. This is done in order to ascertain whether the seller has any right or has clear and marketable title to the property that he is selling or not. Now, this process, when it comes to buying any property in Goa, gets a bit more complex because of the involvement of Goan succession law or Goan private personal law, as it is called. Goan personal law, which is peculiar to the state of Goa, has some very unique provisions, because of which to some people it may seem completely outlandish. In fact, I found many advocates from outside Goa find it difficult to grapple with Goan personal law. So as we go through the process today, let us try and find out how title search is to be conducted. Let us see what documents are to be examined in course of title search and what to look for in these documents as we undertake this process. Now firstly, let me begin by putting to rest the most common misconception which I have encountered, which is that an entry in survey records, that is more particularly in occupants column of form 1 and 14 or form D, indicates ownership. Now this is absolutely incorrect. Form 1 and 14 is not an ownership document. It is only a survey document and at best indicates who is in possession of the property. An entry in form 1 and 14 is only presumed to be true and only suggests who is in possession. This presumption can be easily rebutted by production of ownership documents. And however much I may say that it is not an ownership document, it is always extremely prudent to check if the seller has got his own name mutated in form 1 and 14 before you venture to buy any property in Goa. Now, since we know that survey is not the only document that needs to be looked at, the question arises is which is the document that needs to be examined. Now, these are what are called title documents or ownership documents, and this process could take us all the way back to the pre-liberation documents. What needs to be established is a clear, continuous and unbroken chain of transfers of ownership from the person who was originally an owner of the property to the person who is presently an owner and is trying to sell the property. Once we examine the pre-liberation documents, we will find that these documents are often classified into two categories. First would be the land registration documents. Now, pre-liberation land registration documents would be classified into two: description and inscription. Description is a document, as the name suggests, describes the property and gives it one particular description number. Once you have this description number, this document then goes on to describe the property in terms of its area, boundaries, vegetation and topography. Very often we find in this document of description that it makes a mention of boundaries such as rivulets, hills or coastline, which have a great degree of permanence and would help identify those property even today with the help of this document of description. The second document would be the document of inscription. Now this document is where the name of the owner at the relevant time is found inscribed. The document would also record the name of the subsequent purchaser who has obtained a property from the person whose name was originally recorded in inscription. The third category of pre-liberation document could be the document of matris. Now matris, just like survey document, present day survey document, is not an ownership document. It was prepared for fiscal purposes, but nevertheless can be used to complement the title documents in order to establish the right of a particular person to that particular property. Now our search begins from identification of who was the original owner, he found in inscription, all the way to the present seller and how the right has devolved. Now that we know that pre-liberation documents are to be looked at, one question would arise that what happened post-liberation and what is the documentation that we find subsequent to 1961. Now, surprisingly, you will discover that a lot of conveyances that have happened post-liberation are found describing properties based on the pre-liberation documents like description, inscription and matris. The reason for this is, although liberation happened in 1961, there was no land survey carried out up to the 1970s, and this is the reason all the way for almost more than a decade, documents continue to describe, conveyances continue to describe documents as by virtue of the pre-liberation identification. These are the pre-liberation and post-liberation documents that we have seen. Question now arises is, what are ownership documents? Now ownership generally is found to devolve on a certain person by virtue of inheritance or by conveyance, which would be commonly known as gift deed or sale deed. If you are looking in course of title search for documents of inheritance, then you may come across documents of will or inventory proceedings or succession deed. Now will, as we all know, is a document by which the testator bequeaths his right to a property to any particular person. But the wills under Goan succession law are on a slight different footing from the wills under other laws in the rest of the country. This being so that the will under Goan succession law becomes effective immediately upon the death of the testator. That is, testator is the person who has left the will. And this is unlike the Hindu law form, wherein a will left under Hindu law, for instance in Delhi, would have to the person in whose favor the will has been left would have to obtain a probate. Now there is no need for obtaining a probate under Goan succession law. The second category of inheritance document would be inventory proceedings. The most common inventory proceedings that we encounter are the inventories which are held upon the death of a particular estate leaver for distribution of his estate. Once this inventory is instituted, the properties left behind by the deceased estate leaver are listed and then are allotted among his heirs. Such allotment could be by way of allotment of an entire property to one particular heir, or allotment of one property to more than one heir by stating the shares in which the said properties are allotted. The third category of document would be succession deed. Succession deed is merely a document that states who are the heirs of one particular person who has expired and does not make any reference to the properties and does not make any reference to the shares in which they may have acquired properties. For investigation into what proportion the shares have been acquired, one may again have to look at the law and see the document merely says that XYZ are the heirs of the deceased person. Now acquisition by way of sale or gift is by a registered document. This acquisition of sale or gift could be of either an entire property or a small portion of a larger property, or by conveyance of undivided share in a property. What we need to examine when we look at conveyance documents are whether the description of the property tallies with that of the previous owner, and that such transfer is unconditional and imposes no such restriction by which the title of the person would pass. The transfer by sale deed or gift deed should be such that the title, right and interest of the seller clearly passes on to the buyer when he purchases the property. Of course, we find very often that certain restrictions are imposed or conditions are imposed in sale in terms of use of property. Law says when a restriction is imposed in sale deed on the right and such restriction is repugnant to the right created, then such restriction would be unenforceable in law, and the right of ownership would pass on to the transferee without, as if the restriction did not exist. For instance, if there is a sale deed and the sale deed says that the property is entirely conveyed to the purchaser, but imposes a restriction to say that the structure which exists in the property which is conveyed will be used only for storage of coconuts and cannot be used for residential purpose. Now, such a restriction would be repugnant to the right created, and the purchaser is entitled to dispose of or enjoy the property as he pleases, as if such restriction did not exist in the document at all. Once in course of title search, we have all these documents before us, that is of inheritance or conveyance or the pre-liberation documents. We need to examine them from the point of the peculiar laws, point of view of the peculiar laws that exist in Goa. One such law is that no person under Goan succession law is permitted to transfer an immovable property onto his children or grandchildren without the consent of other children and grandchildren. Another aspect would be that of a will. In case a will is made and the disposition made in the will is found to exceed the disposable quota, then to the extent to which the disposable quota is exceeded, it is liable for reduction, and such reduction would have to be done in an inventory proceeding. Now, when you look at an inventory proceedings, very often we find that since it's an order of the court and it has to be entirely followed and it confers right on the allottees. Now, this may not be so. We need to ensure that when allotment made in inventory proceedings, during the entire inventory proceeding, the mandatory provisions have been followed. For instance, when there is an auction conducted in inventory proceedings, it is mandatory that the court notifies every interested parties, irrespective of the fact that the party has already been notified of the initiation of inventory. And if such notice is not given to any of the interested parties, then the entire auction and the allotment would be vulnerable to challenge and liable to be set aside at the instance of such party who was not notified. Next, when we examine these documents, sometimes we find that allotment or transfer is done by an entity called Komunda. Komunda is an independent private entity which is governed by a separate law, which is the Code of Komunda. If there has been a transfer by Komunda, we need to examine the documents and see whether the mandatory process of transfer has been complied with by the Komunda while making the transfer onto any private individual. If the mandatory provisions have not been followed and there is possibly a fraud played on the Komunda, then on examination of documents, it could still be so that the allotment is liable to be challenged even several years later. After we have all these documents, the next aspect that needs to be examined is whether there is any lien or impediment that has been created on upon the property that is sought to be purchased. Now, such lien or impediment could be by way of having obtained a mortgage, that is by either deposit of title deeds or otherwise, and by execution of an agreement for sale with a third person, or by even executing a conveyance, a sale deed with a third person. Now, this can be verified by certain simple steps that need to be taken, which are in course of due diligence. First would be to ask for scrutiny of the original title documents of the seller. Once you have the original title documents of the seller, it is assured that the seller has not created any mortgage by deposit of title deeds and has not at least sold the property to a third person, because if there was to be a sale, the originals would not have been in his possession. Second would be to issue a notice in public newspapers which are in wide circulation calling for objections to the proposed transaction. This would ensure that if there is any co-owner who has been left out, then he could approach you with documentation, and you would save you the embarrassment of having to having gone ahead with a sale deed which was inherently defective. And such notice would also bring to light any other liens if there have been, which have been created on the property, or an agreement for sale or MOU executed with third person, because such third parties would be entitled to come with an objection. The notice serves also yet another purpose, is that it establishes your bona fides and your good faith in which you have entered into a transaction. If a notice is given, it will go a long way into establishing that your transaction is not some kind of a fraudulent or clandestine transaction made to defeat somebody else's rights. The next aspect would be the aspect of which is extremely peculiar to Goa, which is the law of communion of assets. Now, the law of communion of assets, as to someone who may not be aware of it, is the law by which a spouse, that is a husband or a wife, would acquire 50% right in the estate of the other person, that is in properties, in each other's properties, merely by virtue of marriage. Now, this right of communion subsists throughout the marriage and up to the point that the marriage ends. Now, if there has been a divorce, the question would arise is, after divorce, whether the parties are free to dispose of the properties belonging to communion, because properties belonging to communion cannot be disposed of while the marriage subsists without the consent of the spouse. However, this is not so. Even the marriage ending in a divorce would not entitle the other person to dispose of his property without the consent of the spouse. This is because there is need to have an inventory subsequent to obtaining a decree of divorce, which inventory would then make separation of assets or allotment of properties among the two spouses. So, if such inventory has not been conducted, it would necessarily mean that the consent of the other spouse, divorced spouse, would have to be taken to undertake such a transfer. Now, this is of course the general rule. The exception to this rule would be the existence of a prenuptial agreement. That is an agreement executed before marriage between the husband and wife to say that your properties would remain with you and my properties would remain with me. And in such case, the law of communion would not be attracted, and parties may be able to dispose of properties at will without consent of the spouse and subject to the terms of such an agreement. One other issue that arises very frequently in course of when we set out to buy properties is the need to obtain a no objection certificate and NOC from Town and Country Planning Department or the Planning and Development Authority. Now, this NOC is necessary only in case there is a larger property as per the survey plan, and what you are seeking to sell or buy is a small portion of that larger property. If what you are seeking to buy is only an undivided share of the entire property, then the need for such NOC would not be attracted, because this does not amount to fragmentation of landholding. Now, besides title, there are a few issues that also need to be examined in course of title search, one of which would be zoning. Now, zoning would determine what you can use that particular property for and how much of it you can use. The building regulations classify our properties into various zones. For instance, commercial zone, settlement zone, agricultural zone, orchard zone, industrial zone, and so on. If your property is situated in commercial zone, that would mean that a person can attain maximum height and maximum FAR. And in contrast, if your property is located in conservation zone, then the development would be restricted to the architectural aesthetics of the surroundings. One other kind of zone which we have to deal with is of course a zoning under different law, which is the coastal regulation zone. Coastal regulation zone are regulations which restrict the development of developments that are carried out along the coastline, along rivers, lakes and ponds. Now, so any construction which may have come up in these zones, that is the CRZ area, would require prior permission and approval from the CRZ authority, which in Goa is the Goa Coastal Zone Management Authority. and any construction done without prior permission from GCZM would be liable to be demolished. Yet another issue that comes up very frequently is that of private forest. Unfortunately, this is an exercise that has begun in the 1990s at all India level and has still not been culminated. By this exercise, what the government is trying to identify properties which are privately owned but are essentially forests. So, if your property is classified as private forest, the development there would probably be restricted. In order to identify whether the property is private forest or not, it may be necessary to go through the list of proposed private forests that have been prepared. Only one such list so far has been accepted by the NGT, but as far as the remaining properties are concerned, the exercise is still in progress, and therefore it may be necessary that we ensure that the property that we seek to transact is not a part of private forest. Very often we may have also seen that certain documents show the existence of an agricultural tenant or a munkar. Very often agricultural tenancy and munkarship are confused with each other, and this is not so. The rights are agricultural tenant and munkar are completely distinct from each other. An agricultural tenant is derived from the law relating to land to the tiller. That is, the tenant is considered deemed owner of the entire agricultural property from the date of coming into force of the Act. This would mean that the original owner now stands divested of his right and the tenant is considered to be the owner. In such a scenario, the original owner is not entitled to sell this property anymore, and such a sale deed could be considered to be void. As far as munkarship is concerned, this right is restricted only to a dwelling house and the area immediately appurtenant to it. It does not affect the right of the owner or the bhatkar to the entire larger property. And the bhatkar would be entitled to sell the entire larger property to any person he wishes. This, of course, such sale would not affect the rights of the munkar and that of his dwelling house, and the new purchaser would merely step into the shoes of the old bhatkar and become the new bhatkar. Having said this, it would always be advisable to rule out the existence of any sort of agricultural tenancy or munkarship before you enter into any sort of transaction. Now, any property is by default considered to be an agricultural property, and therefore there is a need to convert it to non-agricultural purpose. This process is done at the level of the collector or deputy collector, and a conversion sanad needs to be obtained. So we need to verify whether our seller has already obtained a conversion sanad or not. Because if the property does not have a conversion sanad, then you need to factor in the cost in acquisition of your property of the cost of obtaining a conversion sanad from the deputy collector after you purchase the property. If the property has a structure on it, then it is always advisable to identify if the structure is legal or not. This can be done by obtaining the construction license, the approved plans, and the occupancy certificate. The structure has to be tallied with these documents, and if the structure is found to be partly or wholly illegal, then the structure may be liable to be demolished, and the cost of demolition could be recovered from the new owner. If you have completed the process of title search and you find that the property is in accordance with your requirements, then next step would be to ask the seller for the last paid house tax receipt, electricity bill and water bill. This is so because you want to verify that the seller has taken care of all liabilities up to the date of the transaction with you, so that none of those liabilities are then spilled over to you after you become the new owner. This is more particularly so in case of house tax, as we all know that the house tax has presently been increased to an exorbitant rate. So it is always advisable to rule out any house tax liability by the previous owner as on the date of sale deed. Now, what I have presented before you today is just a brief overview of how to conduct title search or due diligence in course of before buying property. This may not be an exhaustive exercise, but I have tried to deal with the issues that come up most frequently. I hope I have been able to do justice to this subject. I would like to end by extending my deepest gratitude to the Goa State Legal Services Authority for having given me this opportunity to share the few things that I know about Goa property documents and how to do title search. Thank you.
Thank you all for watching this video. If you do enjoy it, then please like, share and subscribe.
राष्ट्रीय न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण
न्यायालयातल्या कारवाई खातीर बरो वकील मेळून दिता.
वेळार योग्य कायद्या खालची मदत आणि सल्लो दिता
लोक अदालत द्वारा चड काळच्या केसीक बेगीन सोपयता.
आणि तेवूय सामके मोफत.
राष्ट्रीय न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण बेस बरो न्याय बेस बरो समाज.
अधिक माहिती खातीर लागच्या न्यायालयातल्या न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण कार्यालया लागीं संपर्क करा
वा टोल फ्री नंबर 151000 चेर फोन करा.